Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargav, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In this episode, we talk about the NGO Missionaries of Charity, which was founded by Mother Teresa, facing problems with the government. We also talk about the Aam Aadmi Party making inroads into Punjab. But first, we talk about COVID-19. Earlier this week on Tuesday, India's drug regulator granted emergency use authorization to two COVID-19 vaccines, Corbavax and Covovax. Along with this, it also granted emergency use authorization to Molnupiravir, which is an oral pill for treating COVID-19. In this segment, Conan Sheriff, who reports on health for the Indian Express, joins us to talk about this development. So, Conan, could you start by talking about these two vaccines, Corbavax and Covovax? How different are they from the other vaccines available in India right now?
Yeah, so India currently administers three vaccines actually. First is Covishield, which is manufactured by Serum Institute. That's an antiviral vector platform vaccine. Second is the Covaxin by Bharat Biotech, which is an inactivated virus. And third is the Sputnik, which is also like Covishield, the same platform.
And for the benefit of our listeners, when we say platform, it basically means the process through which the vaccine has been developed.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the way you introduce the vaccine and generate the immune response. So two vaccines have been granted emergency use authorization. First is Corbavax. This is going to be manufactured by the second largest vaccine manufacturer in India, which is Biological E, which is Hyderabad-based company. This is a protein subunit vaccine, which is another very old technology. The vaccine is built on a traditional platform where instead of using a whole virus like what Bharat Biotech does, Bharat Biotech takes the whole virus and inactivates it. Here, instead of using that whole virus, you're only taking the fragments of it. And these fragments here is the spike protein. Remember, spike protein is the part of the protein which actually attaches to the human receptors. And the subunit vaccine basically contains this harmless S protein. And once the human immune system recognizes this protein, it then produces antibodies that fights the infection. So basically, Corbavax includes an antigenic part of the virus to trigger the immune response. The other vaccine is Covovax, which is already very popular outside India, which we call as Novavax. It is also built almost on the same platform.
The same protein subunit platform, basically.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a little change in this. But the change is that it uses what we call as a recombinant nanoparticle technology, which means that Novavax, the company, which is a biotech firm in US, uses these harmless copies of spike protein and injects that into insect cells, which is the moth. And then this protein is then extracted and they're assembled together like a nanoparticles. And the same technology again, these nanoparticles then generate immune response. Both these vaccines the technology is old technology. It is used in hepatitis B, HPV. So what is the advantage of this is the fact that you can do very large scale production of these vaccines and you don't need like the BSL-3 facility that Bharat Biotech needs.
Right. By this, you mean those cold storages that are necessary for some vaccines and which are actually very expensive to set up.
Exactly. So these are not that kind of expensive to make. In fact, Covovax Serum got a regulatory clearance from Philippines drug regulator last month, and they've already started exporting the vaccines. So this comes at a time, remember, India is going to administer also booster doses, from Jan 10th. So it comes at a time when we'll be having more number of vaccine platforms available in our arsenal. So yeah, it's very positive news.
And when talking about booster doses, there are some that are saying that these protein subunit vaccines will actually be better as booster doses. Is that the case?
So the NEGVEC, which is the Technical Advisory Board of the vaccines, which recommends the government, uses this data globally, which is the fact that if you use, like, for example, an AstraZeneca, which is a viral vector platform, and then if you have to boost, if you use an mRNA vaccine, which is like Pfizer or Moderna vaccines, then the immune response is much more better or much more robust compared to if you use the same dose of the third dose. So that's the basic premise, that since majority of Indians have either got a Covishield or Covaxin, which are basically antiviral vector vaccines. So the booster should be a different platform. Here we are talking about a subunit protein vaccine, and we have two of them. But remember, we are actually now not calling the new phase as booster doses, but they're being called as precautionary doses, which means that for 60 plus, they could still use AstraZeneca as the third dose, because there have been very few adverse events following immunization, which are the blood clots in that age group. And for healthcare workers who are below 45, we might actually go for Covovax and Corbevax.
Basically, the government right now hasn't decided whether they are going to use the same vaccine as the third dose or one from a different platform.
Yeah, but sources have told us that they would be using a different platform. Also, a lot of these companies are parallelly running their own trials to look at how they work as boosters. Because right now, we really don't have the data. In 60 years and above, there is some sort of waning immunity, but we don't know whether the third dose of the same vaccine would generate that kind of immune response, or a different platform after Covishield or Covaxin would also generate a robust immune response. So these are all big questions. Corbevax, in fact, has received an approval from the drug regulator to conduct a booster trial, just as a booster, people who've got. And it's also very important to mention that Corbevax also conducted a separate phase 3 comparator clinical trial, where it was actually evaluating superiority of its efficacy against Covishield. And it says that it has demonstrated better efficacy as against Covishield. But that data is related to mostly Delta. We really don't know in terms of what happens with Omicron.
Okay, so according to the study and the data that has come out of it, it's saying that at least when it comes to the Delta variant, Corbevax seems to be performing better than Covishield. But like you said, we don't know what will happen in the case of Omicron.
Exactly. But interestingly, Covax has already, which is the Novavax, the US-based company, has already conducted a booster dose trial outside India, which is a 6-month booster, which says that after 189 days, it actually generates a very robust immunoglobulin response, which is the antibody titers, which we keep talking about, which neutralizes the virus. It says that it increased by 4 to 3 folds overall when compared to the first two doses. These are two different things. Again, these are all tested vis-a-vis Delta. Novavax, in fact, has already started testing how its vaccine is going to work against Omicron. And they said that the results will come out in the next few weeks. So if that results are very positive in terms of stopping moderate and mild infections, because all of these vaccines, in fact, for Omicron are able to provide protection for death and severe disease. So that data, I think we are seeing, because we are not seeing that kind of mortality in terms of Omicron, which we saw in Delta. Remember, in Delta, we saw a lot of vaccine, their efficacy significantly reduced vis-a-vis mortality and deaths, like the Johnson & Johnson single-dose vaccine. A lot of people then had to go for a booster. So the early data from Omicron shows that at least it's stopping or providing robust protection against death and severe disease. So yeah, so these two vaccines are potential candidates for booster. Again, we are going for precautionary. Booster also, the government is talking about it. So in the next few weeks or maybe a few days, the government also will soon come out with the protocol on booster doses, because the government is saying that we had to bring in precautionary doses because of what we are seeing with the Omicron surge. And once the data on the larger population on how the vaccine efficacy is being reduced, then the booster doses also will come soon into India.
Okay, now besides these two vaccines, Corbevax and Covovax, the government also gave emergency use authorization to an oral COVID-19 drug called Molnupiravir. Now we know that this is actually a repurposed drug, meaning it was first used to treat some other disease. It was used to treat influenza. So could you talk about how this drug works and the extent to which it helps treating COVID-19?
Yeah, so Molnupiravir, is an oral pill that works by introducing errors into the virus genetic code. So because there are errors, it prevents the virus from replicating. So we're talking here about lesser viral load. Molnupiravir is like administered orally for 5 days, and it's not authorized for using more than 5 days. It's only for mild to moderate disease, and it has to be taken just 3 days after you are tested positive or 5 days after you're tested positive for the infection. Right now, what we've gathered is that it has been based on the early data from US and UK. All of these 13 companies that have got the emergency use authorization are conducting phase 3 trials in India also. We still don't know how well it works in the Indian population. So the early data we still don't have. So that is why this has to be used with a lot of caution. It is being introduced because of the fact that we might see a significant comorbid population, especially in the 60 plus group because of the Omicron surge. And it would be another drug that will be in the national clinical treatment protocol. But these are early days. We still don't know how effective it is in the Indian population, because even though globally this data is very limited. But yes, it is a very, very important an arsenal for us right now, because we are seeing that most of people who are getting infected by Omicron are fully vaccinated people. And with the vulnerable population, they could be a certain percentage or a significant percentage of them who would get hospitalized. So when you have symptoms and on basis of the prescription of the doctor, then molnupiravir is one of the drugs that can be prescribed.
And next, we talk about Missionaries of Charity, the iconic Kolkata based organization which was founded by Mother Teresa. The NGO seems to be in a bit of a trouble because of a recent decision taken by the central government. Due to this decision, which was taken on Christmas Day, the NGO is now unable to access the money it has received through foreign donations. To discuss what this decision was and the controversy it has caused, joining us is Indian Express's Deeptiman Tiwari. Deeptiman, this controversy first got attention when Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee on Monday tweeted about it. In her tweet, she said that the Union Ministry has frozen all bank accounts of the Missionaries of Charity. But we understand that this is not exactly what happened. Could you talk about what action has the government taken against the NGO?
Basically, after Mamata Banerjee tweeted this around 3 p.m. on Monday, both Ministry of Home Affairs and Missionaries of Charity issued a statement where they clarified that their accounts have not been frozen by the center. Rather, the Ministry of Home Affairs has actually refused to renew NGO's registration under the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. And this was done on Christmas Day, that is December 25. And Home Ministry said that this was done based on adverse inputs. This is what they officially said. And what these adverse inputs were, the Home Ministry did not clarify. Missionaries of Charity said that basically because their application for renewal was rejected by the Ministry of Home Affairs, so they had asked all their centers not to operate the foreign contribution accounts until the matter is resolved. So basically what they were saying is that they had themselves asked their accounts to be non-operational.
So they themselves took that measure because their registration under the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act has not been renewed by the government.
Correct. Because this was not renewed and the FCRA registration ceased to exist beginning December 25. So it was only natural for Missionaries of Charity to not operate their accounts, because then it would contravene Ministry of Home Affairs action. So that is why.
And how does the government not renewing its registration affect its operations?
Well, in simple terms, the NGO will not be able to use any of the money that it has received from foreign donations in its foreign contribution accounts. However, the missionary will be able to use any money that has got, any donation that it has got locally, that is from within India. On that, there would be no bar. So yes, its operation will be hampered because it gets a lot of foreign contribution. In fact, in the past 5 years, the NGO has got donations to the tune of 425 crore. And in the last financial year alone, it has got more than 75 lakh in contribution. So yes, its financial prowess will be impacted definitely. So obviously, its operations will also get impacted, but it won't cease to operate completely.
And the other thing that you mentioned in your report is that this particular NGO was also targeted earlier this month, around the 12th of December. Could you talk about what that was about?
Look, Missionaries of Charity, which was founded by Mother Teresa, who has also won a Nobel Prize for her service to the poor and destitute. has been a target of the Sangh Parivar for some time. In fact, outfits associated with Sangh Parivar have time and again alleged that the missionary is engaged in religious conversion. Recently, on December 12, an FIR was registered at the organization in Gujarat. This was done under Gujarat Freedom of Religion Act 2003 for allegedly hurting Hindu religious sentiments and luring towards Christianity young girls at a shelter home it runs in Vadodara. The NGO obviously has rejected the charge, but this is a charge which has been made by even some BJP MPs. BJP MP from Jharkhand, Nishikant Dubey, in this just concluded winter session had alleged in parliament during 0 hour that missionaries of charity was engaged in religious conversion. So there has been some pressure on missionaries of charity for some time now. In 2018, when there was a BJP government in Jharkhand, the state police had arrested a nun from one of the centers of missionaries of charity, claiming that she was involved in selling of children from that center. So the NGO has been under pressure from the government, and there have been multiple investigations launched against the organization for supposed irregularities as well as allegations of conversion and selling of children over the past few years.
Right, and now this latest move by the center is happening at a time when we are seeing a rise in the targeting of the Christian community in India. In the past few weeks, churches in many parts of the country have been attacked. We have also heard hate speeches targeted towards this community. And in light of all this, I suppose this raises eyebrows. So, what kind of political reactions have we seen regarding this decision?
Of course, the first reaction, as we all know, came from Mamata Banerjee itself, where she expressed shock at MHA freezing bank accounts and said that 22,000 patients and employees have been left without food and medicines. And she said that while the law is paramount, humanitarian efforts must not be compromised. This was followed by a statement from Shashi Tharoor, who again said, "This indeed is shocking. When Mother Teresa wins a Nobel Prize, India rejoices. When our organization serves the poor and destitute, the government cuts off their funding." And he ended the sentence with one word: disgraceful. Similarly, TMC MP Derek O'Brien, he posted on Twitter that after a filthy hit job on Mother Teresa's Missionaries of Charity on December 25, now MHA doing what it does best: spin doctoring and cover up. There have been similar reactions from the CPM, which has called the development as shocking news. So, yes, these are basically political reactions which have come on the development.
And in the end, we talk about the Aam Aadmi Party. This party, which is led by the Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, has been trying to make inroads into Punjab for some time now. While convincing people to vote for them, it has been citing the Delhi model of governance as an example. And it has been hoping that it defeats parties like the Congress and the BJP in the upcoming Punjab Assembly elections that are scheduled to take place in February. But Aam Aadmi Party's chances of actually doing that were being considered rather slim. Until now, that is. And this is because in the recently concluded Chandigarh Municipal Corporation polls, it surprised both the BJP and the Congress by winning the most number of municipal wards, a total of 14 out of the 35. The party's win has left BJP stunned. Now, could this win be reflective of what will happen in the state elections in a few months? To talk about this and the reasons why the Aam Aadmi Party won, Indian Express's Hina Rohatgi joins us. Hina, the Aam Aadmi Party seems to have done quite well in the Chandigarh Municipal Corporation polls. You write that their results have really come as a surprise to the BJP. Before we talk about the reasons why that happened, could you take us through the kind of campaigns that AAP and BJP ran this time? How did they compare with each other?
So, as far as the campaigning was concerned, BJP candidates, in fact, I felt that they were still trying to bank upon the Modi wave. Like in 2016 municipal elections, BJP had swept the polls with 21 out of 26 seats. One was obviously in alliance with the Akalis, but they still had their majority councillors, like 20 councillors they had, and one was that of Akali. So that was the time when there was this Modi wave. And this time as well, it was not that localized the way AAP had. AAP candidates were newcomers and they ensured a localized agenda. They talked of parking, they talked of waste, they talked of garbage collection. So they talked of more, local agendas. And as far as BJP is concerned, we could see the candidates campaigning on Hindutva. They had those slogans of Jai Shri Ram, and they didn't speak much of that development. Obviously, they did get a manifesto where they had specified of development works that they carried out. But the campaigning, the door to door, it was more of seeking votes in the name of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the development that has been done at the national level. So that is the difference that I could see in their campaign. AAP's campaign was quite extensive and they reached out. They had started the campaigning quite well in advance. It was like approximately 1 year before they had started moving the ground workers and, interacting with people, speaking about the Kejriwal model of governance.
So, is this the primary reason that they managed to do well this time? This focus on local issues rather than broad themes like nationalism and even Hindutva?
So, there were a number of reasons. Like, one was that they put forth the Delhi model of governance. They said we're going to give 20,000 liters of water to every family a month in Chandigarh free. And in Chandigarh, residents who were facing that water tariff hike by 200%. 200% is a lot. It's humongous. Like people who used to get a water bill of 1,800, 2,000 rupees, they used to get it like 5,000, 6,000. And then the garbage collection charges were hefty. They had imposed charges of thousands and people were really upset with all this. So that factor worked because AAP came with its 5 promises. They said, we're going to make your parking free. We're going to make your waste collection proper. We're going to ensure 20,000 liters of water free to every family a month. And then we'll have a corruption-free MC. That was another thing.
So basically things that people in Chandigarh have been annoyed about.
Yeah, they were very annoyed about the water tariff hike. The notification of the hike was there last year. And then what BJP ruled administration did was that they ensured that this is put on hold till March 2022. So means after the elections and after March 2022, residents were apprehensive that they're going to have the new rates again. So that was the problem.
And apart from this, you write that there was also an anti-incumbency factor, right?
Yeah, there were wards like where the local Chandigarh BJP chief Arun Sood has won like twice from there. He was the councillor for the last 10 years from there. So from there, just a newcomer won from that Ward 25 and BJP lost. So there were a couple of things where Chandigarh is a city known for its open spaces and it was facing acute parking crunch. Parking was one reason, and then Chandigarh's low performance in cleanliness. When you talk about Chandigarh, the first thing that comes to your mind is cleanliness, clean city. Chandigarh in 2016, it was the second cleanest city in the country. And it came down to 66th rank in 2021. So basically, we can speak of 2 C's. One was the cleanliness issue that really irked the residents, that how come a city like Chandigarh has come down to such a position. The garbage, there's no proper waste disposal. And then second C was the second COVID wave that really upset people.
Yeah, and this is something that caused a dent in BJP's image even nationally, right? During the second wave when the government was criticized for not doing enough. Is this what you're saying hurt them in these elections as well?
It hurt a bit here because people at a time when they required a public representative the most, they wanted ration, they wanted beds, they wanted oxygen, they wanted someone to just pick up their phone and say, Ki, don't worry, we are trying to arrange a bed for you. There is this problem, there is this problem. There was no one like that. The representatives, most of the BJP councillors, they were missing in action. And some of them were there who did work. And obviously they did win also this time. Like Maheshindra Sidhu, he was there during the second COVID wave. Because that's the time when you require a public representative. And majority of them were missing. So that was one point which did hurt people.
And during this past year, one thing that was prominent, especially in Punjab, was the farmers' protests. Did that also go against the BJP this time?
Yeah, in fact, in a city like Chandigarh, there was this robust support for the farmers' protest, like Matka Chowk turning an epicenter of protest. And here, the thing is that we had new villages this time under the municipal corporation. There were 13 new villages. And villages and colonies, there was a lot of support for the farmers. Like if you see, even the AAP candidates who were won this time, like AAP's Damanpreet or Premlata or others, so they were those who had actually campaigned during the farmer protest, who had participated in the protest that time. So it did really have an impact.
And how did Congress perform this time?
Congress, in fact, I felt that they could have done better, but the selection of the tickets somehow went wrong in certain seats. And like obviously there, I may call it that they're face saving or what, they are saying that their vote share has come the highest, which is about 29.79% was the vote share for the Congress. But their seats, like last time it was 4. One joined them later from the BJP when he was suspended. And this time it is 8. They could have done better had the selection of the tickets been right on some seats, but it went wrong. So Congress could have played a very strong opposition role when the cleanliness ranking came, the COVID wave, and they did not play a strong opposition here. Another reason why AAP was preferred over them.
Okay, now we understand that AAP has won 14 out of the 35 municipal wards. So both AAP and the BJP need the support of more corporators to elect a mayor. And I suppose Congress is the only other party they can look to. So what kind of position does Congress find itself in?
So Congress is in a fix because Congress has 8 candidates. It does not know that where do we go. If we join AAP, we have an alliance with the Aam Aadmi Party. It is somehow going to strengthen AAP's stance in the Punjab elections as well. And Congress and AAP are like, in Punjab, it's Congress is seeing AAP as its biggest enemies there. So rivals there. And somehow then it thinks that, if it goes with BJP, then that's another problem for them. And another thing that Congress does not want AAP to be strengthened is that most of the workers in the Aam Aadmi Party were the Congress rebels who had joined later, including the former Congress chief. He had left criticizing the Congress leader Pawan Bansal, Congress chief Subhash Chawla, that the leadership has changed and it's all in a mess, everything. So if they strengthen Aam Aadmi Party, if they support Aam Aadmi Party, if they try and get their mayor, so it would be like strengthening those rebels, those Chhabra and Chandramukhi, who have always criticized the Congress leaders, who have always. So it's like giving power to Chandramukhi and Chhabra to run the house. That is something which Congress would never want.
And Hina, these poll results have come just a few months before the Punjab Assembly elections. The Punjab Assembly elections are supposed to take place between February and March. So the question naturally is, to what extent can we see these poll results being reflective of what might happen a few months later in the assembly elections?
In fact, in a city like Chandigarh, which is a cosmopolitan city, obviously the issues of Punjab are very different. Like Punjab has got drugs, sacrilege, different issues. Chandigarh's issues are very different. And saying that its election results are going to cast its shadow on the results in Punjab is slightly difficult. But the fact is that this municipal election has given a major boost to Aam Aadmi Party. It has given them visibility. People are talking about their win. That look, Aam Aadmi Party, which was a new entrant, which was just a budding wo, here in Chandigarh has bagged maximum 14 seats. So they are cashing on this win here in the elections in Punjab. And the Congress in fighting there in Punjab is another advantage for the Aam Aadmi Party. The Aam Aadmi Party and all others are just saying that you got no face in Congress left. So the differences in the Congress that have come to the fore is going to give a big advantage to the Aam Aadmi Party there.
You were listening to Three Things by The Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargav, and was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.